Coming up on this episode of Common Denominator.
There's $400 trillion of value in real estate, which is 70% of worldwide wealth. So statistically, if you have the asset of real estate, there's just much more money looking towards that.
Hi, and welcome to Common Denominator, where we shine a light on people striving to make the world a better place. I am Dave Azer, filling in for the great Moshe Popack, but don't worry, he's not far. He's a mere 5 feet away from me in the guest seat once again. It's like your fourth or fifth time as a guest on your own show. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah, no, I'm enjoying this, Dave. I think we have a good rapport, and I enjoy the questions, and I know we have some questions from guests and listeners, so it's going to be a fun show.
Yeah, this is the first time we've ever done this. You're going to take questions from viewers and listeners. The idea being that you've built a very successful real estate management company, and you're very proficient in business, and you provide a lot of that content via social media and the podcast. But I know that you get a lot of questions inbound from people who follow you on social, so we thought let's have a forum where you can answer some of those. So before we get to a bunch of viewer questions, why don't you spend a couple of minutes telling the audience who may not know about YMP Real Estate Management and the company that you've built?
Sure, no, I appreciate that, Dave. So kind of from a macro perspective, I think of the energy of our company is contrarian in its nature. I think with contrarian, you have the ability, it's harder work, but you have the ability to produce, I guess, outsized returns. So whatever we do, and we do three main things. We buy and we hold real estate for long term, but three areas of assets. Multifamily, which is apartment buildings where people rent and live there. Office buildings, and assisted living, which is kind of assisted senior housing, and each one has its own division, and we try to have economies of scale, and the type of assets we buy usually have a lot of hair, a lot of issues, and our team, I would say, are kind of enjoy issues, things that other management companies, other people couldn't have figured out. That's what we do. It's hard, but the nature of the team is that we enjoy the challenges.
You just said something that I think is so interesting, because a lot of these questions are about the entrepreneurial spirit and mindset, and you talked about how your team likes to solve problems. So I would ask you, is that a key component to being a successful business owner and an entrepreneur, the enjoyment of expecting the unexpected, of solving problems? Because listen, as a business owner, every day you're going to have problems.
Yeah, I would say that's correct. I would say pivoting, knowing, not getting frustrated, trying to be level-headed, so you can think, and it's the nature of it, because it's constantly evolving. I was just talking to somebody yesterday about, here's this great company, Blockbuster, right? I was like, oh, everybody's going to, in the 80s and 90s, like going to Blockbuster. All of a sudden, streaming comes along, Netflix, and, nobody can touch me. But meanwhile, they go out of business. And if you're going to choose, I always say that, if you're going to choose to be in business, you have to be comfortable. Again, it's literally that pit in your stomach. I talk about that because you don't know. You do the best you can with the information that you have, within the things that you can control, and then you have to move on to the next issue every time.
Let's talk about that from a practical perspective. So let's say you have an issue, a problem, something you need to pivot on. What is your process, your team's process? Do you have a whiteboard? Are you writing down pros and cons? Are you talking about it? Are you making a gut instinct? How do you handle that?
So I always say, the core of any business, it could be real estate, you're selling widgets, you're doing whatever you're doing. In the business box, it's the bottom line, and being honest about it. Is this thing going to be profitable? So going to that, it's numbers. And I always say, for my grandfather, I always quote him, the numbers never lie. So our process is trying not to be emotional about it. Trying to say, okay, this is where, every business's income comes in, there's expenses, and then there's net profit. So you have to analyze where the issues are. It could be now we have a lot of issues with insurance in Florida. All right. What are ways to mitigate that? Are there different carriers that we could speak to, different deductibles? Fine tuning and looking at the issue, and then getting everybody in the room to collaborate on the issue, all brain juice together to try to come up with solutions, and then pulling the trigger. Don't let it sit, because the next day another thing is going to come up. Make a decision. Again, I always say with like 70% of information, and move, because time is relentless, doesn't stop for anybody.
Okay. Awesome advice. We've got some viewer questions. I want to get to these. The first one is a pretty cool one. What is your day-to-day at YMP, you personally?
So I actually wear many hats. We do have our corporate office in kind of Fort Lauderdale, Broward area, but we have properties in 7 states, so we're all over. I found that, and you have to know your strengths and weaknesses. I find that, and I work with my wife Yafa, so she handles kind of more operationally. I'm more kind of big picture strategy. So getting, we have our monthly meetings, so I go into the office then. I also have a home office where I work. But I think my greatest strength is having that quiet time to be able to strategize, think that the foundation, constantly thinking about what assets, what businesses, and the things that we're doing currently, where we want to be in 6 months, a year, 5 years, 10 years, and constantly moving, trying to have that leadership and trying to move the pieces towards that way. And within that, you're able to see people that need help. And I'm constantly reaching out. It could be my CFO, or reaching out to my bank, or literally like the FPL, the electric company, different things that I see are hard issues, because as the leader, it's no matter what, the ship has to continue to move. And I tell my guys, give me, if there are things that you guys can't figure out, give it to me. And that's, if you choose to be an entrepreneur and leading a business, you have to take the hardest things on you. Don't give that to anybody else.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's so interesting and so helpful for the audience. And I'll ask a follow-up to that, which is you've made a decision not to be in the office every day. And I think that a lot of business owners have a hard time letting go of control. And probably they would admit are maybe around too much and standing over people too much. Talk to me about the mentality of being okay to work from home with the understanding, as you just said, you're there if they need you, but for the most part, by and large, you don't see them day to day.
I think that when you're dealing with adults, and that's the thing also, the hiring process. These are adults. These are supposed to be responsible. We all know, we each have our micro goals, right? These are the dates. Everyone's accountable, and there's process and protocols. If you're not able to reach your particular goal, because everyone's relying on everybody else, then I just ask that over communicate. Put that in an email. Let everybody know that that's going to be the story. But generally, people don't want that. I know I don't want that. Give on to others what you would want yourself. You want the freedom to be creative, to come up with your own solutions. I wouldn't want, nobody wants like a whip on them. Do what you got to do. We're good. We got it. And if there's any issues, we come together, collaborate, and I find that works. We're able to get, no unnecessary meetings. It's just like we come together for what we need to. We bang it out, go. Everyone go. I'm not looking to clock in people and watch people, because if you have to do that, then it's probably not the right personality for our YMP, for our company.
Yeah. You shot a social media video a few weeks ago that went bananas about pitching and what you look for when people pitch you, and it got insane feedback and traction. And so a follow-up, somebody asked you, keys to a good elevator pitch. So, in addition to what your video was about, which is what you look for when people have they thought it out, do they have a clear plan? If someone has 30 seconds to impress you, what are you looking for in that short amount of time?
Again, I always call it the business box because that's what it is. Someone, in its essence, what we know is that someone's coming to me, they have an idea, and ideas come every day, but the execution of the idea is the hardest thing. I want to hear from him two things. I want to hear that he has the X factor that is going to do the grit, no matter what, that whatever that idea is, he's going to see it all the way to the end. That's one sentence that he can explain to me. And that's clarity. That comes from clarity. And the second one is to that point of that video, how everybody, to the bottom line, how everybody, himself, everybody, it's a win-win, how everybody's going to be able to make money. Right? It's business. This is what it is. Otherwise, you can invest in treasuries. I'll do, as an investor, you have option A, B, C, D, E, F, G, right? I'm getting calls every day of pitches, right? So 30 seconds, that's what it is. Give on to others what you would want.
What's your record in terms of saying yes quickly? Have you ever just said yes right away? Dazzling pitch and you're just like, I'm in? Or do you always go home, think about it?
There is I'll spot someone, it's actually the person that's not looking for money. I'll spot a certain, I guess, a DNA, a certain grit DNA, someone that's super controlled with their emotion, and they have super clarity, and they're going on their way super quiet. And I tell my kids, it's always the guy in the back of the room not saying anything. It's always that guy. It's not the guy that you think and that you see all over social media. It's usually the guy quiet in the back, and then I'll usually spot it. It's hard. It's very rare. I was just telling someone earlier today, I missed an opportunity, and the guy actually just had an exit. I could have invested maybe 200% on my money in 2.5 years, and I saw it, and there were just timing. We just missed each other on a potential investment, and I usually don't. Unfortunately, most of the time is no, because what do I think when I started out? Again, it's the give on to others what you would want for yourself. And I have this joke because it's like, okay, relaxing on the beach, all of a sudden, in reality, flipping, right? You look at your phone, and all of a sudden there's a wire that came in. And that same wire comes in every month, and you're happy to be able to go about your life. Our lives are complicated, and that's what people want. People want, there's no complications, you're getting back up on the investment, and the money just comes up. You don't have to make any calls, no follow-up, nothing. Give that to other people, and you're good.
How great is that? You wake up in the morning, look at your phone. There's just more money. There's more money in there than when you went to sleep.
Well, how good of a feeling is that? Give that to other people, and take the headaches. Right? If you're the one running the business, let's say you're the one running the business, and you have investors, give that to other people.
Okay, this one is a fun one. I kind of know how you feel about this, but I think much of our audience may not. Investing in the real estate market versus the stock market.
So as I've gotten, I'm not that I'm an old man, but as I've gotten older, I do see actually benefits to investing in the stock market, but because the nature of the capital markets, the nature of wealth, I always think about not just money, I think about wealth for families, because assets, which is real estate typically, is a vehicle. So the banks are really the ones that have the money, right? So when you have real estate, it's a easier box for banks to lend you money when you need it, to invest with you. It's something that's more solid, and we talked about in one of my videos was about that. Literally, there's $400 trillion of value in real estate, which is 70% of worldwide wealth. So statistically, if you have the asset of real estate, there's just much more money looking towards that. Mm-hmm. And the U.S., having real estate in the U.S., it's a pretty solid country, right? So you think about that, plus the robust banking. Like, we take like the UK, there's probably less than 100 banks. In America, we have 5,000 banks, right? So there's just a lot more flexibility and opportunity But again, with the real estate, again, it's not flipping, it's holding the assets long term and make sure you don't kill the cash flow. That you have enough cash flow for good cycles. Right now we're in a tough cycle, maybe another year or two, whatever it is, but holding and understanding and not over leveraging.
How can real estate investors balance the importance of sustainability and profitability? Are green and eco-friendly properties the future of real estate?
So it's interesting. We have our not-for-profit neighborhood farms, right? Neighborhood Farms USA, and we put in, gardens to teach into these kind of workforce housing communities that we own, and others in schools and other places. And it's our way to try to kind of teach people about healthy eating. It's our passion, my wife's passion. And one of the things in the real estate box, which I think is going to be a big movement, is something called Agrihoods, where you have these gardens, you have these, you can have horses and chickens and that life, and you're not too far from work. But I think that because I think it's only about 7% of people live in rural areas, but I think quality of life and that type of living, because I know when I see my kids, and we have a farm, and just the kids outside, we make a bonfire, and the kids are outside, or they're playing with the chickens, or they're gardening, and they're not in their electronics. And I just think this is the most normal thing. And more people, we're just getting so with the technology, so involved with that. And I think that real estate is naturally going to move. It's going to take time, but it's naturally going to move towards more green, more sustainability. It's going to move towards that way.
And in the short term, I'm just curious, it's not on here, but as a follow-up, do you have an opinion on solar panels? If someone's a homeowner and they're thinking about using solar, what do you think?
So each state has different, so the federal government has certain rebates, and then each state, I know like New York has even further rebates. Florida's a little different, even though we have 300 days of sun. But also, everyone thinks, we think of electric vehicles, and we think of even solar panels. Oh, that's great. But the lifespan, I think, is maybe 10 or 20 years. And then how do we get rid of these panels, right? It's, not everything is perfect. I remember a story. It was a nuclear power plant. And I know that in society, nuclear is seen, that's very bad and not good. It's actually, with all the redundancies and how it is, probably the most clean type of energy. So what happened? People, it was like I think it was Westchester. It was like right outside New York. So people were lobbying, shut down the nuclear power plant, which supplied 40% of New York City power. Fine. Finally gets shut down, but there was no plan B. So what they do? They needed power for New York City. They brought back coal after firing 1,000 people. So you got to think through. Critical thinking, think through fully. Is this sustainable? Is it based on emotion, or is it critical thinking? Does this make sense? Is it practical? Right? A lot of people, marketing and games, and does this? You have to make sure. You can want whatever we want, but it has to make sense.
Right, and I think that goes back to what we talked about at the start of this conversation about running a business, about taking that moment to think big picture. Because I think for any business owner, entrepreneur, especially in the beginning, and if you think back to when you started this company, maybe you were, impulsive or aggressive or really wanted that first big bite at the apple, and you can open yourself up to making decisions you'd later regret. So even though we sort of covered it, let's spend a touch more time on the ability to be disciplined when running a business, how important that is.
So important. There are things, and I didn't even think of there are times that I didn't fully think through, not just in business, but decisions that I've taken. Like, for instance, so I do this podcast, right? And it's important to me. It's important. It's a way that I can give back practically. But it does take, I have a certain amount of time, right? My wife Yafa needs time. My 10 kids need time. the office needs time. I need time to be okay, right? To go through my day. But everything takes time, and the discipline. That discipline actually is the answer to freedom. It's actually, you have a set schedule, you have your discipline, and you stick to it. And over a long period of time, you're going to see tremendous results. You're going to see great things. But that, everything is on my calendar. Everything is exactly disciplined, whether it's self-care time or whatever it happens to be, or time with one of my kids. I know today I have on my calendar, 5 o'clock, Aaron, I'm meeting with you, and we're going to do one-on-one time. And that's literally how it goes, because time, like we said, is relentless.
Yeah, and that leads very nicely into a viewer question, is the concept of hustle culture promoting an unhealthy work-life balance among entrepreneurs and contributing to burnout. So yes, you've got to be a hustler if you're building a business, of course, but you don't want to get burnt out.
It is if you want to have, because I think what's reverse engineering it, you want to have a cow, or a cash cow that you're taking care of over a very long period of time that's sustainable. I really like what Gary Vee says. He's like, slow down. Like, I know there is that hustle culture. The nature of humans, we're not robots. We have to, again, set aside time. I don't believe in that. I'm a big believer in that turtle, but doing things correct. Do it correct the first time. Do it slow, methodical, and one thing, do it extremely well and thought out, and do what you say. And then if you can't over-communicate that it won't be this way, but it'll be that way. So managing other people's expectations, being very aware of that. So it is in its nature, 1 year, 2 year, 5 year, it is its nature to burn out. I know a lot of guys, I had an offer, and I remember this, talking about like hustle culture, when I went to law school, like big law firm in Manhattan. But I saw the stat, 80-hour work weeks, after 5 years, 90%, this is the greatest job ever. 90%, quit that. So it has to be balance. And you set up foundationally, take the time, might take you a couple years, take the time, live simple in the beginning, and take the time slowly, slow it down.
Follow up to that, and then one more question after this follow-up. Burnout from your employees as a business owner, how important is it for other business owners and entrepreneurs to just check in on their team to make sure they're not getting burnt out?
100%. You have to, in some ways, I do actually see my employees, it's all just an extension of my family, my kids, my employees, everybody. It's basically family, because I know if, we're all there for each other, because it's not me. This is just what it is this machine that's running. And I know if any of the guys or whatever it is have an issue, one of my guys had an immigration issue. Unfortunately, someone had cancer. You know what we're going to do? We have to do what we have to do, and we have to show up for that. And that's what we try. I'm not perfect. We're not perfect at that. And we try to constantly check in. It's not. You have to have that mentality. It's not just about the bottom line. Nobody wants to be around being whipped and abused. Nobody wants that. That's not where we are. You try to do the best you can. And some days I'm pulling so much of myself. I'm being pulled in all different directions because I'm trying to tap in and see where things are. And sometimes I mess up, but I know that in my heart I'm trying, and I know my wife as well. So. Yeah. That's what it is.
Okay,
it's tough. It's not easy, but it's worth it. It's something. It's deeply meaningful when you look back. At the end of the day, when you're kind of by yourself, it's deeply meaningful.
Because I think as a guy who's worked for people before in the past, you just want to feel heard and respected. Yeah, the money is great. The money is the money, but sometimes an attaboy is even better than the money. The pat on the back.
Yeah. You have to do that. You have to have a good word. You You have to have a nice word. Nobody wants to be yelled at. Nobody wants. You have to do that, right? Again, keep saying that, right? Treat exactly what you would want. Give on to others. If someone's coming from a good place, if someone's coming and they messed up, listen to that. Don't be like, oh my God, what'd you do? Just
right. Okay, last one, and this is a great one to end on because this is probably the number one question when it comes to entrepreneurial spirit and small business. Is there ever a right time to start a business?
The right time, I think it's clarity. When, again, ideas are all the time. If you just know that that's your destiny, unfortunately, many businesses do fail. But when nobody's going to tell you, don't look for that third party to tell you, go and do it. It has to come from within you, and there's going to be a lot of people. Those people don't talk to. A lot of people that are going to be doubting you. If you feel clear and you're willing to pay the price, there's always a price. And the startup, right? You're doing it. You're living. Sometimes I met some guys living in their car for months, right? Just doing whatever needs to be done. It's rewarding. But when each individual person has that clarity, you have the thing. I see it working. I see the movie of it. Jump. Do it. That's what.
You did it and haven't looked back.
Yeah. Constantly pivoting. Constantly. We do what we got to do.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Well, this has been fun.
Yes, Dave.
Thanks as always.
Yes.
Yeah. And just to let everybody know, you are back in the host seat next week. You're going to be chatting with Larry Olson. Larry is an expert in performance-driven neurology, and he's going to give your audience key brain hacks so they can have an unstoppable mindset and feel empowered to live the life they've always wanted. That sounds good. Unstoppable mindset?
Yeah. No, I love that. I love like longevity and feeling good and the right mindset, because movement starts with the mind.
Yeah.
Movement starts with the mind. You have to do the work, whether it's meditation, whatever the practice is, that you have to have a good mindset in order to produce the right type of results.
And lastly, just want to let the audience know to subscribe to your YouTube page so they don't miss an episode. And if they're listening to the show, it would be awesome if they would give a 5-star rating and review. I'm a fan.
Thank you.
Subscriber and a 5-star fan. So always good to see you, man. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Dave. It's really a pleasure.
You got it.
Thank you.